Hello and welcome to the Jim Ruff Show. Today we have a special show for you, and I'll let Paul explain that to you, but my guest today is Paul Everett, who has come here from Shelton, Washington, and Paul's an old friend of mine, and truth be told, he was my manager maybe 25 years ago. Ancient history. So, but Paul and I have interesting differences of opinions that somehow managed to keep us close friends as opposed to what normally happens in life, and so I love that. But Paul, maybe you could explain what's happening today.
Yes, well, this is provoked by Jim having applied to the Case Foundation. This conversation is provoked by Jim having applied to the Case Foundation for a grant to further his idea on how we can sharply improve the citizen democracy in the United States. And so I'd like him to explain a little bit about what the case application was and why it was important.
Well, the Case Foundation, this started for me reading an article that they published, which is Putting the Citizens at the Center. And this was written by Cynthia Gibson. And this article got me so excited. It was just exhilarating because it's talking about getting, really putting citizens at the center and as being the cure for lots of problems in our society. And to me, the Wisdom Council is what is essential to do in order to put the citizens at the center. And so I was really, really excited about that. And the case grant it really was about local projects, and it really had a much more limited scope. And so a lot of the projects that were in there looked similar, but I guess I wanted to talk about the Wisdom Council. I think that we were one of the finalists, we at least out of 5,100, we made that cut. And but I don't want to talk about that cut. I want to talk about the importance of the Wisdom Council at the higher level, which is to meet the whole objective that was laid out in that paper, and that is the objective or the vision, the mission of the Case Foundation as a whole.
Yeah, let's review that mission, because let me tell the Case Foundation and everybody listening that this is a really good mission, and I was very, very excited about it, because I don't see this very often in my consulting business where an organization has such a correctly formulated in the sense of the what and the how that every mission should have. So this is the Case Foundation mission. It says, to achieve sustainable solutions to complex social problems. So that's the what. They want to get solutions to complex social problems. And Lord knows we certainly have those in the United States today. How are they going to do that? This is the how. By investing in three things: collaboration, leadership, and entrepreneurship. So they have the what and they have the how. And so this Case Foundation was started by Gene and Steve Case in 1997. As you may or may not know, Steve Case is the creator of AOL. And we certainly do know about AOL. And so he wants the foundation to be focused on three strategies: encouraging collaboration, supporting successful leaders, and fostering entrepreneurship in the nonprofit sector, which is difficult because nonprofit sector does not have the profit driver. So he's asking for a new way of being, and that's one of the things that we kind of want to touch on a little bit today. So Jim, seeing about the overview of the Case Foundation and seeing about where they want to go, how then does the Wisdom Council in the dynamic facilitation fit in, or shall we say, enable that?
Well, I'd like to talk about it backwards.
You want to talk about it backwards?
Backwards, yeah.
Of course.
I want to talk about the difficulties with the current strategies for how to get this to happen. And like, for instance, the deliberative democracy world is really about one-time events. It's not about ongoingness. It's not about embedding it in the system. It's about government saying, hey, we want to find out how the citizens feel about this, what the citizens think about healthcare plans, for instance, and here are the 5 possibilities, and we'll randomly select citizens, and we'll have them examine those plans, and then we'll find out what the citizens really think after exploring these topics. And then when it's done, it kind of goes to the authority.
The existing structure.
The existing structure. It
Right.
feeds the existing structure. And so that's a limit of deliberative processes. It feeds the existing. Now the article was so exciting because it pointed that out, and it pointed out that limit, and so that's why that's one of the reasons why I found that so exciting. And of course, the Wisdom Council doesn't do that. The Wisdom Council really sets up a deal where it's ongoing. One of the 12 principles is that you randomly select this group every 4 months, say, group of 12 random citizens every 4 months. And those people determine the issues.
But they do it with a facilitator.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's special requirements on the facilitation, yes.
Right.
But otherwise it wouldn't work. And that actually is another limitation. Another limitation of the normal processes, I feel, is, I got a much touch in my chest here, is that most processes kind of, well, first of all, sometimes they're hearings. Sometimes they're like supplicating government, here's what we came up with, gee, please enact it. Sorry, a lot of you couldn't make it today. You know, kind of a supplication to government to try and enact something. And this is not that process. And it's about the creating a we the people. I forgot where I was going there, but how do we create a we the people that can really become all of us telling government where we all need to go? So
So we have one of the major differences then is that the Wisdom Council goes on over time.
Yes.
And the Wisdom Council, however, as I know it, the 12 folks get together. They don't come together again in another Wisdom Council because they're all randomly selected, right?
Each time, that's right.
Each time.
Yes.
So then you've also eliminated agendas, so to speak.
Yes.
Which is another power that I know exists in that.
Yes. So in one case, there's a predetermined topic. In a lot of the situations, a lot of the efforts around deliberative democracy, or some of these citizen town hall meetings, that sort of thing. There's somebody says in the paper, we're going to talk about this. This is the topic, and the people that you get are often self-selected people, and it really
who are already interested.
Who are already interested, and often you might have a targeted group. You might say, oh, we need to get the youth involved. Or, oh, we need to, this is a poverty area, we need to get them involved. So you target that group and try and bring them involved. And the involvement process is, this is where I was going before, is aimed at either deliberation or dialogue, either one of those. And then there's a little arm waving that we're going to come up with answers. We're going to come up with solutions. Well, if we look at what they mean by dialogue or deliberation or whatever, dialogue doesn't come up with answers. That's not what dialogue does.
It's just exploratory.
It's exploratory. And deliberation only comes up with answers that are predetermined. So there isn't any creative, all of us coming together, being creative together, coming up with answers that are unanimous. That's not in the program, and unless it's planned in some way, unless it's figured out in some way how to do that.
Planned chaos.
Yeah, well, there's a chaotic element to it. Yes, But that's why the facilitation is so crucial, is that
Yeah.
the facilitation is what we call dynamic facilitation, and it elicits a quality of thinking and a quality of talking where a diverse group can reach unanimity on very difficult issues.
Now, you've said a number of words that assumes some knowledge on the part of our audience, so I'd like to provoke you a little bit with that. Is all right? Okay. Once the 12 people are selected and are being dynamically facilitated by the individual, whoever that might be, there are some characteristics about what is going on in that group of folks, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about the emergent quality and so forth that you brought up earlier in the conversation.
Well, the way it works is that the facilitator stands and says, what are some of the issues we might talk about? You've randomly selected, say, 12 people from the community or from the nation or from whatever system you're going to look at. You've randomly selected 12 people who meet for a period of time, maybe 3 days or a day and a half or something. And the facilitator stands in front and says, what are some of the issues you might want to talk about? And gets a list and helps them choose what they're hottest about, what's the hottest issue, even though they don't think they can do anything, even though it's not up to them, even though they're conflicted, whatever it might be, just that energy is the key reason why you choose it. And then this group is facilitated, dynamically facilitated. And that conversation is where people just talk. They just say what bubbles up. And the facilitator's job is to help make sure that each thing that's said works for the group. So that nobody, no matter what anybody starts to say that's kind of, maybe it's negative or disagree or whatever, rather than saying disagree, you'd say, oh, you have a concern. Let me write that on a list of concerns. So no matter what people say, it moves things forward.
And so they're heard in this method of facilitating.
Yes.
And my experience with it has always been that those concerns get up on a board somewhere and they don't go away. So everybody knows that they personally have been heard by the process. So then what happens?
Well, eventually, I mean, there's stewing and there's struggling moments, whatever, but at the end of the process, the group usually has a story to tell about where they went in their sojourn. And we started with this issue of inner city crime, whatever it may be, and we realized that it really has something to do with the system. It's not bad people, and we want to rejuvenate people, rehabilitate people. So they have a story to tell. And then they reach unanimous conclusions about what needs to happen or what the shared vision is or something. And then they walk into a hall and they present this to the community.
But it's unanimous.
And it's unanimous. And not only unanimous, but the people are excited about it.
Yeah. But now the question comes, how does the, always for me anyway, how does the dynamic facilitator help them reach this unanimous, reaching unanimity in our culture is not easy.
You know, it always happens. And the difference is that the best way to reach unanimity is for a group of people to be diverse and to have a breakthrough. Then everybody likes one another and feels a sense of connection, and we all feel motivated to go make it happen. That's the best. Most meeting processes, like deliberation, and even dialogue, because dialogue doesn't really go to conclusions, really mute that process.
Okay.
Deliberation doesn't allow that process to happen, for instance. Discussion doesn't allow that. You know, a traditionally facilitated meeting doesn't allow that to happen. But that's the aim of dynamic facilitation, is to have those kind of shifts and breakthroughs where everybody just kind of realizes, hey, we're all here together. We've got a story to tell together. And a lot of that involves often redefining what the problem is.
In fact, I would bet that it's almost always needing to redefine the problem, because usually the problem is a presenting issue, not the real issue.
Yes, exactly. exactly. So what they do is they present their story to
whom?
Hopefully to the whole community. Now this is the hard part for us so far, is that we feel like if we had money, this is why we're applying for grants, we could get the whole community there. But anyway, that's the struggling part at this point, is getting lots of people in the community there. And but when they present, everybody in the Wisdom Council is usually jazzed. I mean, every time
Very
really
excited,
jazzed.
yes.
And they say to people, you need to, if you get selected, randomly selected, you need to come. This has been fun. And then they say their unanimous conclusions, and then the audience talks about them. And usually the audience says, yeah, we think so too. So this is a way to build that sense of unanimity in the whole large community, not just reaching unanimity in the small group, but building near unanimity among the whole population.
So who convenes? In other words, who selects and convenes? Remember, we have a political structure in the United States with county commissioners and state representatives and so forth all over. Who gets this together?
Well, see, ideally, it's all of us. Ideally, it's we the people. If there was some way to all of us to gather and say, hey, let's try this, and we could do it through a vote, like a supermajority vote. We could do it through a constitutional amendment. That's a symbolic, all of us saying we want to do this. Or, and here's the clever part.
Love clever parts, Joe.
Or just a few of us, this is theory, we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done it, we've tried it, but we haven't actualized it yet. The theory is that if a few of us just started, just a few of us, 3 or 4 of us say, let's get a Wisdom Council going, and that Wisdom Council says, hey, this is a great process, we got to keep doing this, then that's the charter.
Okay.
And
Charter
the next
comes from the people, you're saying. Then.
We need the charter to come from the people.
Okay.
So if you and I just start it, then this Wisdom Council group gets going and says, hey, we need to keep doing this, which they pretty much always do. And then you, presumably the next time, you have a new Wisdom Council with more people, which we haven't actually, that's difficult.
Why is that difficult? Let's stop right there, because
wow,
that's important.
I'd love to talk about that, but I don't think we have enough time.
You don't want to go that way, okay.
Yeah, it's really hard to talk about it, but it has to do with the stress that people are under, I think, around feeling their hope. My short answer is the hope ceiling is penetrated.
Okay.
In other words, their hopes get so high that they realize, oh my gosh, I don't want my hopes dashed. I'm going to not care anymore.
I'm going to go back down to where I was, or
back
something.
Down to where I was. I'm not
well,
going
they couldn't, because once they've had that experience, they'll never go back. But they revert, though. Some.
They revert some. So that's a short answer. But we've done a lot of thinking about this, and there's probably better ways to talk about it. But to me, that's really fundamentally what's happening: is that people feel a new vulnerability in this process.
Well, let's talk about some places where you have done wisdom councils and things have happened and stuff has continued on. Now, I know there's a group in Oregon, and then you had a group in Vancouver, or no, Victoria, and some other places. So what's happening there? Well, anywhere where this is, in fact, ongoing at the moment?
We have one in a couple of weeks in, I say we, I mean there's people in Oakland that are gathering together to try a Wisdom Council process like we've described in a couple of weeks. 2 weekends ago, there were a group in British Columbia and Victoria was trying one, and in the same weekend there was a government-sponsored group in Bregenz, Austria, that tried it at the same weekend. And in Oakland, I mean, the difficulty we've been having is getting enough people in the community gatherings to show up. And I think if we had money to advertise, and we had media sponsorship, and we had did it as a reality TV show, I don't know what, but some way to really excite people's interest to show up at a community meeting. More sponsorship from the city council, you know, I think that can help. But really what you want is the whole community to be paying attention to the results when they come out, and to then be in the conversation. And we just think that just requires really it requires money, I think, and organization. We're all volunteers. We're all running around trying to earn money, and then we try and make this happen. So, but the key process in this, it seems to me, there's some problems with normal stuff, is that they're one time, they have a predetermined topic, they often have a limited population, like a targeted population, or they're self-selected. They aim at dialogue and deliberation rather than what we call choice creating, which is this quality of conversation. They end up supplicating, they fitting into the system, like begging legislators to please enact something, you know. And most of the processes are really aimed at a local level. They're not they're not scalable to the national level. And this Wisdom Council process is scalable to the national level. And then the accessibility is often difficult. Like deliberative processes really require government to say, let's try this, and to keep doing it, somehow embed it in the system.
Okay, now that's been one of my long-time issues with the Wisdom Council concept, was that how do the already existing people who are in power, political power, because this is a political process after all, and it's a deep one, then how do they not feel threatened? How do they latch on to it and carry it forward? In other words, if it's really going to be totally community inclusive, that includes the existing political power structure. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've gone through a number of different phases of this. When I wrote my book, I thought people would read the book, realize we need a constitutional amendment. Legislators would go, oh my goodness, we get to solve all our problems at once, and I get to be, it's actually a tremendous benefit to legislators because they don't have to run around raising money and whatever. They can actually serve the will of the people, and the will of the people gets defined by the people. So,
what book was this? You haven't mentioned it.
Thank you. I wrote a book called Society's Breakthrough.
Okay.
www.societiesbreakthrough.com, and which has recently, by the way, Amazon reviewer, just #1 nonfiction reviewer for Amazon, just called it possibly one of the 10 most important books available in English.
Yes.
So that was exciting. So,
yeah.
But okay, so I thought it was an idea.
Let's not quite get off of that just yet.
Okay.
If he saw that, is there evidence that his review caused you to get some more volume or interest?
Yes.
That's good.
There is, but we've got about 4 minutes, so
Okay.
I want to run on this. So the key in this is that, I mean, I was going to say that I tried to tell people about it, and I thought that would work.
Yeah,
I just thought we'd tell them, and it didn't work. You're coming along.
There's hope for me yet.
Yes.
Huh?
And then, but then there's. Then we thought, well, we don't really need to do that. Just a few of us can start it, and then people will feel it because they'll be experiencing it. And then through an experience of it, then that will happen.
Well,
but
it is a great experience.
it is a great experience, but there's this hope ceiling factor that enters in. I mean, when people leave the room, they have their arms outstretched. Everybody in the council is pumped. The people in the audience are pumped, and yet it doesn't spread yet. We haven't figured out what makes it spread.
Or what's blocking the spread
Or what's
of
blocking the spreading. And that is really a curiosity. So then, now we're thinking, okay, well maybe, or now I'm thinking anyway, maybe we need the sponsorship of local leaders. We need their involvement from the beginning, and you know, it'd be nice to have a women's organization be the sponsors, for instance. It doesn't need to be elected leaders. It could be the, you know, the NCAA, what am I, NAACP.
Right.
So, you know, it could be League of Women Voters, some organization to get behind it and to really promote it and have some money to advertise it and have a media partner. I think that would be that's the strategy. That's my strategy. Plus, there's a lot of people that feel it just has to happen in localities. So in Victoria, for instance, they've moved from working with the whole city now to working with a neighborhood.
A borough or something like that, yeah.
And to try and get more people to make it. And the group in Oakland is choosing one block, and they are having block parties, or they're having a table set out in the street every Saturday for a couple of, you know, setting up tables in the street to try and awaken interest and have people come to the gathering. So that's what's happening right now. It's all happening in slow motion. It should be happening fast. I mean, we need to get this word out. And so now, let me just say one thing, because if we do run out of time, I want to be sure and say this. This is not, to me, that the Wisdom Council, in opposition to these other technologies like America Speaks or the study circles or National Issues Forum or whatever. This is where this is the seed, that if there was this we the people, this voice, this legitimate voice of we the people, now the National Issues Forum has direction not from some special interest groups or from government, but from we the people. Now your citizens' juries get their mission, get their challenge from we the people. Now there's a way to link all of these different technologies into one strategy that leads to citizen-centered democracy.
Wow, that's powerful. That's a powerful
That's what we're doing.
summary.